Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's time for the Brown Sports Bag from the heart of the Barrens, a weekly local sports machine on ESPN Radio 1230. Alongside John Butler, here's your host, James Brown.
Well, John, we're back again this week. We're going to continue doing some of our interviews with coaches. Coming up at 4:30, we're going to have Joe Mercer, the boys soccer coach at Barren County High School. He'll be joining us. Initially, we were supposed to have Amanda Lockhart and Lawrence Niken in here to talk to us. They've had to reschedule. We're still trying to work that out. Hopefully, we can get that worked out. They've had a good 3-year run, so it'd be nice to talk to them. I know that they were not the coaches of the program during that 3 years. Where they've won the district, but they had some quality players coming back. So it'd be interesting to see what's going to happen with them this year. And like I said, we'll talk to Joe later. The upside of Joe's team, as we'll probably discuss with him, is that they were young, even though they struggled last year. You know, you always say if you're going to lose young. So that's what they did last year. So hopefully he's getting that turned around. But before we get to all that in a little while, we're going to talk a little bit about J.B. Holmes at the British Open. Two parts that are kind of interesting. The first 2 days, he was basically unbeatable. Saturday, he was still good. Sunday, that's got to be one of the worst rounds anyone has ever had in a major event.
Yeah, it was unfortunate for me. I mean, JB is from Campbellsville, Kentucky, and I'm from Greensburg, which is 11 miles apart. And JB grew up. You know, I'm a little bit older than JB, about 10 years older. But anyway, my first cousin played golf at Greene County and ended up being JB's college roommate at UK. Okay. And they both played golf at UK and so forth. And I've met JB once before at actually my first cousin's wedding. Mm-hmm. And they remain really good friends to this day. So I've always had a big interest in watching him play. And, of course, he's from Kentucky, and he's very local to me, to say the least. And as always, you know, this was he's had a fabulous career. You know, anybody that can win 5, I think he's won 5 PGA Tours. You're a great golfer if you can do that. Yeah. And this was his first real strong run, I believe, at the lead at a major in which he actually had the lead. Right. And he played fabulous golf his first 2 days, tied for the lead going into round 3, and then he was sitting in good shape going into Sunday. He was 10 under in third place, just a couple shots out, and he started off with on his last round. I mean, I watched it. I got up, and his tee shot on first hole of the last round, he hit a double cross basically and hit it out of bounds. Yeah, and it was downhill from that. You know, he just shot an 87, which is, I would be quite happy with an 87. Right. I'd be I'm happy with an 87 here in town. But he went from third place to third from the last. Yeah. And, you know, it's obviously, you know, money-wise, it probably cost him $500,000. But yeah, I saw that number. I think he went from $760,000 when he was in third or tied for third to the 67th, where it was $26,000. Right, and it just fell apart. Right. You know, it was tough conditions. Nobody played very well on Sunday because of the rain and the wind and so forth. But, you know, it got away from him, and you know, I felt bad for him because I like him, but I don't like to see anybody fail in a lot of ways. You know, it's and in this case, it was just a complete kind of a physical collapse and a little bit of a mental, you know, mentally. I think there's some mental collapse as well after a while, but you know, hopefully JB will bounce back. He was fabulous. His first 3 days were tremendous, and you know he was, you know, it's once he kind of lost it, it was kind of hard to get it back that last day. You know, the British Open is kind of notorious for wrecking people in that way because, I mean, through the history of the British Open, there have been a number of players who hit that Sunday and just have a rotten time at it. So I guess you could say he's in fine company in that sense. Because, I mean, I think Phil Mickelson had just a horrible Sunday at a British Open. He's not a Gary Player, I think, was one of them that had gotten, you know, just the guy from France a few years ago. Yeah, that's right. John Vanderbilt or whatever. Yeah. He had a 3-shot lead going into 18. Yeah. and ended up losing. So it can happen, especially with when the wind shifts. And that, it was a bad weather day all in all. But just hated for JB just in general because I like him, and he's a really, really good guy. And but in fairness, if you're going to shoot 87, if you shoot 87 on the first day, you don't make the cut, you don't make any money.
Right.
So, and
you're Tiger Woods at the British Open.
That's exactly right. Tiger was not very good either. He shot, I think, 78, 79 his first day. So, it can get away from you, and it did. But I'm sure the experience overall will probably help JB.
The other thing that came out of him, and I guess the spotlight was on him only because he got the early. He was playing so well early, was the complaints about his pace of play. Which the primary person who stood out was his playing partner right on that Sunday, Brooks Koepka, who was pointing at his wrist at one point about a watch he didn't have on, and
I didn't see that.
Yeah. And he had some comments afterward that he was talking about Holmes's pace of play that. Talking about the possibility of assessing a warning, and
I think it applies oddly for the group. It's not the individual player sometimes.
Right.
Yeah, JB has been criticized in the past. It's not just this tournament. He is not the quickest player, and he got fairly strongly criticized back when he won out in, I think it was Los Angeles where he won. About his pace of play was slow, and he is very deliberate. Brooks Koepka, on the other hand, is very fast.
Yeah.
He kind of sees a shot and he hits it. So it wasn't a real good matchup, especially a slow player probably hurts a fast player more than the opposite.
Right.
And Koepka was critical several weeks ago as well about slow play. I did not see him say anything about JB, but I told somebody when I saw the matchup that you're talking about contrast.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the slow play bothered Brooks Koepka or not, but he didn't play very well either.
Well, the irony is that he actually played, I think, his best day on Sunday when he was playing with Holmes. He finished at 6 under.
But he was 3 over. He was 3 over. He was under par all 3 days. And he shot like 75 on the last day. So he did not play very well at all, actually.
Yeah.
Part of it was weather, and it may have been some frustration too.
I don't know exactly what the rules are as far as it relates to the pace of play, though.
They keep up. It's mainly what I can gather and what little I know about it is where you are in relation to the group ahead of you.
Okay.
And if you fall like a hole and a half behind, that's when it's on you.
Right.
And you get a warning, and you've got to speed up to catch back up with the group ahead of you.
And I guess what Koepka was citing was the fact that there was no warning given, even though they were. I don't know that they were. I'm guessing they were a hole and a half.
I don't know. I don't know if they ever got a warning. I didn't hear that because once both players started playing poorly, you didn't see them on TV very much.
Well, and I think that's kind of what happened here in a lot of ways. I mean, the spotlight on it was only because they were doing well early, and then the Sunday. But I do think your point about the weather has a big impact here. I mean, that people can talk about the pace of play and all that kind of stuff.
When you're looking for a ball every hole because of the weather and the wind,
right.
When you shoot 87, it's going to take you longer to play than when you shoot 67. That's 20 more shots.
Yeah. I mean, there's some obvious factors there that have nothing to do with.
I don't play a lot of golf. I probably play 10 times a year.
Yeah.
And I'm not very good, but I am fast. And I don't like. I'm not a big fan of slow golfers myself. I like JB just because I know him personally. But in terms of coming out here, when I go out there and play, I may take one look and I'm hitting it.
I do not play golf. I've played twice in my entire life. I can tell you this: I'd be a fast player because I'd want to get that over with as fast as possible. If I had to actually go out there and swat a golf ball around the course.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of that way myself. But it was. I like these big events. I like the 4 majors in tennis. I like the 4 majors in golf, and it's kind of neat that Shane Lowry, an Irishman, won the British Open and was played for the first time in about 6 years. Not actually in Ireland, though.
Right.
It was in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
You know, the actual homeboys were Roy McIlroy,
right.
who did not make the cut. He shot 79 on the first day.
Right.
I think there were 3 true people from Northern Ireland, and Graham McDowell was the only one that made the cut.
Yeah.
But Shane Lowry was close. You know, he's Irish, and
right.
you know, he obviously had the tournament of his life. You know, 16 under in the major is incredible.
There was a little story, I guess, after he won, and the funny thing about the story that I saw was talking about the reason he did so well on the final day was because that weather was like being at home.
Yep.
And you know, and he had like a little quick comment about that. He's like, "Oh yeah, this is just another day."
And it didn't hurt that nobody put any pressure on him.
Oh yeah,
everybody behind was playing so bad. Nobody even got. I don't think anybody got within 2 strokes of him. Put any pressure on. It'd been interesting to see if somebody could have put some pressure on, but everybody was going backwards rather than forwards.
Yep, that's right. Listen, Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag on ESPN Radio 1230.
Well, John, we're here with Joe Mercer, the Barren County boys soccer coach. Is this your 3rd or 4th year there?
This is my 5th year as the head coach.
Time flies, man.
It does. It does.
Well, thank you for joining us.
No problem. Thank you all for having me.
Real quick, John and I mentioned this at the opening of the show that you would be here, and you guys struggled a bit record-wise last year. The upside is you had a young team, so that's got to bode well for the upcoming season for you.
Yeah, we're excited. Last year, we started the season at our first scrimmage with 12 players. Yeah. And, it takes 11 to play a game. So 12 was a little bit of a struggle. By the end of the season, I think we got up to 19. But right now, I said we have like 25 players coming out. So hopefully that solves our numbers issue. And like you said, we were a young team. We only lost 3 seniors. And again, this year we only have 3 seniors again. So hopefully, all those young players from last year, they got a lot of experience.
25 gives you enough to have a JV schedule.
It does. And for the first time since I've been there, we have a 10-game JV schedule. So
good.
So that's nice.
I noticed that at least on the online, Seth Mitchell was your leading scorer last year, and he's coming back. He's kind of a lineage of good soccer players. Yeah,
he is. He's a huge key for us. You mentioned the lineage. His brother, I think, holds the record at Barren County maybe for goals scored in a season, around 40 or so. And so the players like to give Seth a hard time. That that's what he's got to get to.
Pick up the pace, huh?
Exactly. And he's a very capable player. Love coaching him. He's a great kid and can do a lot of things on the soccer field for us.
Who are some other players that you have coming back that you're looking to get some action out of, especially offensively? Because I think you guys were fine. You were pretty decent defensively last year, but you had trouble scoring goals.
Yeah, we basically last year we had 2 main players that scored our goals, and one of those was Jake Jenkins, who was a senior. He was our second leading goal scorer, and then after that it was Seth. We had a player come in late last year once the season already started. Johnny Para is his name, and he scored a handful of goals for us just in the short time he was with us.
Right.
And so he's one we're looking forward to stepping up and scoring some goals this year. And then Caleb Hester and his brother Landon Hester, they both played in the midfield for us last year, and they were also 2 new players that just they started after the season started last year also.
Gotcha.
And both of them really get into position well and can hopefully provide some more goal scoring for us.
Yeah. John?
Where do you think, you've been back at probably, you've been practicing about 2 weeks, and I know y'all got together some in early summer and spring. What have you been most impressed with your improvement from when you last saw them, I guess, at the end of the year last September?
They seem to have soaked in a lot of things we were talking about last year. Just remembering things we talked about with positioning and how we want to play and when to press, when not to. A lot of those guys they remember that type of thing, and so that's a plus. Because last year, like I said, we had to hammer that in, and hopefully that's something that we can kind of gloss over this year.
And that happens a lot with inexperienced teams too, doesn't it?
It does. that's been a huge thing for us. Even this year, out of our seniors, we have 1 year experience total out of them. And then we have some freshmen and sophomores that have never played before, just athletic kids that want to come out and give it a shot. So year to year, we always have that inexperience factor. But like I said, we have a good core returning this year, so hopefully we can move past that a little bit.
We talked about your offensive players. What about on the defense side? I think your goalie is back, or the goalie you had, Cody Kopis, right?
Right.
Is back. What about other defensive players as well?
Yeah, Cody's back, and he did a nice job for us last year. Never played in goal before last year, and so he did a nice job, saved a few penalty kicks and stuff like that, and he's improved. We've returned two of our starting defenders. One is Enrique Colorado, and he'll be a sophomore, and he started in the center for us last year. And then Skylar Newberry is another one. He played on the outside last year, and looking to maybe move him to the inside this year and pair up with Enrique.
Yeah. What kind of formations or sets are you looking at? Are things changing for you because you do have more experience?
I actually was looking at that earlier today. In the past, we've played with 4 in the back and then 2 defensive mids in front of them to help provide some coverage for those 4 in the back, and then 2 or 3 in the middle in midfield, and then 1 striker up top. And we'll probably start with that this year, but we've been putting in a few other things, looking at possibly having just 3 in the back to give us an extra midfielder, and then we've actually looked at having 5 in the back, but our 2 outside players would kind of go up more than hang back. So we're looking at a couple of different things, and like I say, it just kind of depends on the players, how they fit, and what they can do.
The more skilled they become, the more aggressive that you can play.
Right. And I've never been married to a formation. I'll change it around based on what fits my players best.
Yeah, I guess the formation you described was more one of necessity than anything, because that also probably contributed to your struggles to try to score goals. Because if you just got the 1 striker, you're kind of hoping on the rebound to get a quick goal or something, right? Yeah,
with having 1 striker up there, it can be difficult. You're looking for hopefully playing maybe a through ball. If they have speed and they can run onto it from there, or maybe a set piece. But as far as just possessing it and working it up the field, it gets kind of difficult with just 1 striker up there. So that's something else we've looked at, trying to just kind of see what works.
I mean, do you think you guys have? You said you probably still might start out that way, but do you feel like your guys have improved to the point that you can push forward a little more aggressively?
I think so, and I hope so. We've typically always played with the 2 defensive mids because they have to provide a lot of coverage for the field, and it's a whole lot of running. But I think this year, hopefully whoever we put there can be more conditioned, and so maybe we'll only need the 1 person there, and that'll allow us to bump another player up. So that's something we've been looking at also.
Yeah.
What about your do you have your scrimmages already scheduled?
We do. We have 1 at Camelsville and 1 home against Butler County. And every year we scrimmage Camelsville, just kind of a thing that we've been doing, and it's always a pretty close game. And Butler County, we played them 2 years ago, but they didn't have a team last year, and now they've gotten enough numbers back to have a team.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting with Butler County because they were one of the early programs around here that had a soccer team, but a number of years ago, I think their coach was killed, right?
I believe you're
overseas,
right.
And then they just kind of didn't have somebody to replace him. I think he was in the National Guard or something, but yeah, so it's good to know that they're going to have a program back.
Joe, this is a little off topic. When will Allen County be ready to join the district or field of RC team? They're close, I believe, aren't they?
Yeah, last year they had a JV team for the first time ever, and we played them twice. We kind of pitched together a JV team just to play against them, and we have 2 JV games scheduled against them again this year. I talked to their coach last year, and they were hoping to be ready this year, but when he contacted me, he said they were still playing a JV schedule.
Okay.
So, I mean, it seems like they're close, so I would definitely say within the next year or 2.
Yeah, that'd be great to have them in the district as well.
It would. I mean, since I played, we've added Monroe County. They didn't have a team. Franklin Simpson didn't have a team when I played.
Yeah.
And so we've added a few people, close to us. And so it'd be nice just to keep getting it up.
Has to be one of the largest schools in the state without one. And their proximity to Bowling Green and Warren County with all their strong soccer, it just
Yeah.
It's shocking that they have not had one.
Yeah.
I would think they'd be good at it if they would, once they would ever commit to it.
Right.
Yeah, they just have to convince Brad Hood that they'll produce some good kickers, right?
That's right. Football, that's right.
You mentioned the conditioning. How does your team look in terms of conditioning at this point?
Still preseason. We got some kid. We have a few cross country runners on our team, and those kids run all day.
Mm-hmm.
But we're getting there. We talk about we don't want to peak early in the season anyway.
Right.
In anything, and so we'll get there, and hopefully around mid-season we'll be clicking.
Let's talk about your schedule. You guys opened on the first eligible day there, right? The Hart County game at home, 5:30. Hart County was a program that looked like they were on the rise. I'm not sure how they are these days. What do you expect on that opening night?
I like to forget this, but last year they beat us 10-0. So hopefully, it's a different outcome. But definitely, they have a few quick players that play up top, and that's how they scored a lot of goals on us last year. Just flat out running by our guys. So it'll be a pretty solid test for us. Starting out the gate, like I said, that very first available date.
Yeah. What about the rest of your schedule here? You turn around the next night and host another game, right? Todd County Central.
Yeah. We have we're heavy with home games early, so hopefully that'll help us. But typically we play 2 to 3 games a week.
Yeah.
And Todd County, they're another new program, and I think we beat them last year. And then you see that first week we play Glasgow, so that's a huge early game for us.
Get right into the district schedule.
Right, and really see what we're made of there early in the season. Glasgow's won the district tournament now, I think 4 years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good test. Kind of see where we're standing early on in the season there.
What do you think about your district this year?
It just keeps getting better and better. Clinton County, they've knocked us out the past 2 years in the district tournament, and Monroe County has been giving us a lot of trouble the past couple of years also. So with those two teams, and again, those are two fairly new programs,
right?
And but they're both improving a lot. I think we're improving a lot, and Glasgow just keeps kind of setting the bar for our district.
Right, John.
Well, I think a lot of times people don't understand the especially when it comes to these fall sports, the difficulty with practicing, with heat and things like that. Have you done any 2-a-days yet? Or are you still just in the morning, or?
We did 1 2-a-day. Typically, I've done more, but
it's hard in the afternoon with the heat, isn't it?
It is. We try to go early in the morning or later at night to try to avoid the heat. But with the soccer complex, we have to share with Glasgow's boys and girls, Barron's boys and girls, middle school programs. So you got to find those perfect spots to try to practice where you're going to have.
And it's not easy on the kids too to come back twice either.
It's not. Like I said, and typically I do more, but this year we've done one class, and the kids have even been asking, like, when are we, or 1 2-a-day, and they've been asking, when are we going to do them again? It's like, I don't think we're going to this year, but I guess if they really wanted to.
What time do y'all start in the morning?
Right now we're going from 8 to 10 in the morning.
8 to 10, okay.
And we've gone 7 to 9. If it looks like it's going to be a little bit hot earlier in the day, then we'll bump it up and go 7 to 9.
You mentioned your 2 scrimmages. When are those?
They are the week before the season starts. So I think it's maybe the 5th and the 7th.
Okay.
Are those? It's a Tuesday, Thursday, and I believe that's. And I think the 7th is the one that's at home.
Okay. Anything else you can think of about your team or the upcoming season?
I'm just really excited. The kids, they have great attitudes. I couldn't ask for a better group of kids to work with, and just kind of excited to see where we are. Last year, like you said, record-wise, we weren't too happy.
Yeah.
But we're looking for something a whole lot better than last year.
One last real quick question. You mentioned your numbers being up. How did you manage to achieve that from last year to this year?
Basically just asking the kids, do you have any friends that play other sports that are athletic that, they don't have anything to do. We got a few basketball players. Coach Cunningham, he's told told me, a few kids that told him that they were interested, and so is
Coach Niken's son playing, or
Coach Niken's son's come to a few practices. Mm-hmm. He's one of the basketball players that's come out. Cody Lane is another basketball player that's come out, and both of them, should be able to help us out. I said, failed to mention Pacey Botts is another one that could score some goals for us.
Yep.
He scored some goals for us last year. Really quick, plays on the outside.
Good size too.
He is. So we have a lot of athleticism. It's the skill, and the technical ability that where we're lacking a little bit right now. But we talk about if you can play harder than the other team, it'll make up for those deficits in other areas. And I say I'm just excited to finally play against another team other than ourselves.
I bet.
Sounds good. Well, Joe, thank you for joining us, and good luck to you guys this year. I'm looking forward to seeing some of your games.
I appreciate it. Thank you all.
This Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag on ESPN Radio 1230.
Well, thanks to Joe Mercer for coming in and talking to us about the Barren County Trojans soccer program. Numbers up, that'll help him out a lot. I know we talked about that Hart County game. They lost 10-0. I think he had 13 or so players or 12 players for that game. And that had a lot to do with it because it was early in the season. Hot.
Mm-hmm.
Hart County had plenty of players, and as he was right, they had a pretty good team last year as far as speed and everything. And if they're gonna, it's basically like playing basketball. If they're gonna run you, and they're gonna run you to death. That's what they're gonna do. And that's kind of what happened to him last year. But they got better as the year went along, and he's got the numbers out this year. I expect him to have a decent season.
I hope so. Joe's a good guy.
Yep, he
deserves to have a good team.
My son always liked him. He played for him, I think, his freshman year over at Glasgow.
Right.
I always liked Joe. Joe's been a super guy, super nice. Last week was the media days for all of the leagues that we pay attention to. Probably all of college football had media days last week. And a couple of things out of that, we'll start with WKU. It felt like at the Conference USA Media Days that Tyson Helton just brought a different energy to the podium than Mike Sanford did.
No question.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't buy all the college football hype at all. But it does seem like a different vibe.
Yeah.
He just seems like a much more. I don't know. It just seems like a more positive vibe and so forth. He's a very, very offensive, committed coach.
Right.
Who was there during the Jeff Brom days, which is important to a lot of people around here.
Yeah.
He's committed that we're throwing the ball down the field. If we throw an interception, we're going to be aggressive. And it just seems like there's a lot more buy-in now. In fairness to the previous coach, he had an impossible job. Because I think Coach Brom is one of the top 5 coaches in the country.
Right.
And it was a letdown when Brom left, and whoever came in, it was going to be a very difficult job.
There was one other thing about Sanford's situation that people probably didn't recognize for a long time. They lost
a ton of players,
especially on the offensive line, and that's the thing over his 2 years there. They never could figure out how to fix.
They lost some NFL players.
Right.
And you combine that with losing talent and offensively, it wasn't near the same as people were used to with Coach Brom.
Right.
Wasn't even close to being the same.
Yeah.
In games in which they were, it'd be a letdown to score 40 with Coach Brom. They were having a hard time getting 14.
Yeah.
And it was a tough goal for him, and it seems like Tyson Helton is coming in at the perfect time. Not to replace a favorite coach, to replace the coach that replaced the favorite coach is a really good time to come in.
That may have been his smartest coaching decision of his career so far, because he was one of the people that people wanted to take that job when Brom left.
Right.
And maybe he was at USC at that point in time with his brother. And maybe he recognized this is not the time for me to take this job, and because it just didn't work out. I don't know if it didn't work out for WKU's side or for Helton's side. It didn't work out that he took the job, but now he's here, and he's kind of. You're right. All the pressure is off of them to win.
Expectations are down.
Yep. To the point that they picked 5th, I think, in the Eastern Division, and I wouldn't be surprised if
and not pick fifth in the SEC.
Yeah,
we're talking about the
Conference USA.
Yeah, the East. That's right. So it's not a lot of high expectations.
Yeah, it's pretty low. You mentioned throwing the ball though. One thing that is good for him, he has Lucky Jackson coming back.
He does.
He was at the media days, and I think Lucky Jackson has a lot of potential to be an outstanding wide receiver.
Well, he's a 4-year guy, and he played for Brom.
Yes.
And, he's stuck around, and he remembers Coach Helton. And I think you could tell he was pleased with the hire.
Yeah.
Of course, like any new hire, most new hires are raved about before their first game.
Right.
And then once the first couple games, it's like, we'll see.
Yeah.
But it does seem like the Tyson Helton, the vibe is very positive, and it does seem like they're going to have at least a completely different and more aggressive offensive system. And I think that's where most people that follow Western Kentucky University want to go.
Yeah. I tell you another thing about Helton. One of the things he has to do is figure out a quarterback, because they tried them all last year and none of them were successful for long.
I think they got 3 returnees and an Arkansas transfer.
Yeah. I mean,
graduate transfer.
Yeah, you'll be a little bit shocked if that's not the guy who starts, but maybe one of the other guys is stepping up we don't know about. And here's the other thing. All he has to do is not be snake bit for 5 games, and he gets to 500. I mean, you look at Western's schedule last year. I mean, my goodness, they invented new ways to lose football games.
That's correct, and they really did. And they had some bad losses too.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they had some losses where they don't need to be losing to NAIA schools.
Right. Yeah. Don't lose to Maine at home.
That's correct. And so. But in the same sense, they almost beat Louisville. Of course, we didn't know at the time Louisville probably had the worst football team they've had in 50 years. But at that time, we didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, at that time, I don't think they did.
No, that's right. I think part of Louisville's downfall was attitude.
Yeah. And that's a good point. They played early in the year, and at that particular point in time, I don't think WKU was as bad as it turned out, and neither was Louisville.
That's
correct.
Both
of them we saw epic collapses in their programs last year in terms of losing football games.
And a lot of that's attitude.
Yeah, and a lot of it was attitude. And so if Helton brings a fresh attitude and Satterfield at Louisville brings a fresh attitude, which it seems like he is, that could have a lot to do with how well they do this year.
Then I think both teams play each other too, don't they?
They do. I think it's week 3.
Okay.
They play in Nashville, I think it is. I don't remember exactly what the date is. Late September, 21st, somewhere in that neighborhood. But what did you think about Satterfield's media day there at the ACC media days?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not. I can't say that I'm 100% on board Coach Satterfield right now. It's not his fault.
No.
It's again, it goes back to Jeff Brom.
Right. Yeah.
That's the one that I think most Louisville people wanted. And I went on record saying they had to get him.
Oh, yeah.
And they didn't. They tried, but he stayed loyal to Purdue. So
maybe he had a Helton moment where he realized this was not the time for him to take that Louisville job.
I think it was a right time because they were down. See, that's a
good point.
Western was at an all-time high.
Yeah.
Louisville's at an all-time low. That was a perfect time. But regardless, I hope Coach Satterfield does. He's been successful at Appalachian State, but that ain't Louisville, and they open up with Notre Dame. They have Clemson on the schedule. They got a very difficult. I think the biggest thing that Louisville fans can hope for, if they can get to 500, it'd be a great year.
Oh yeah.
But they want to see a team that plays hard. That team last year quit.
Yeah.
And I don't say that very often, but it was complete. They quit.
Yeah.
And had absolutely no resolve on defense. They were horrible on defense. Quarterback play was bad. Coaching was bad. Everything was bad.
Yeah.
And, it won't be that bad anymore. I mean, Satterfield will improve attitude. He'll improve all that stuff. The question is, will he be able to recruit talent and will be able to win? Ultimately, he's going to have to win at a high level. They expect that. The first year he'll get a pass.
Now, I actually liked the hire of Satterfield, sort of like I did on the men's basketball side, where in the case of Satterfield, he took an FCS school, Appalachian State, that was highly successful, went with it to the FBS, up to Division I, and it took them a little bit, but it didn't. They were competitive pretty quickly at that level. And so most coaches who transition with their programs don't make it past the first or second year, and he did pretty well at Appalachian State, which means he was able to recruit players and coach at a level that is not usually expected at a program like that. So to me, what that says is he's capable of doing this at Louisville. I didn't mind the hire. Now, he did a couple of things early on that I did not particularly appreciate, which is, he cut out the
reneged on two scholarships. That's right. I didn't like that at all.
Yeah, I thought that was a bad move on his part. And so we'll see if that had a lingering effect on the program at all, because I know that there were Louisville fans who are really turned off by that.
Yes, and the next good player that comes out of Franklin Simpson may not get the that was one of the linemen from Franklin Simpson was the one that who took the scholarship.
Yep.
And then when Satterfield came in, he said no, thank you.
Right.
That's pretty hardcore.
To that end, that lineman winds up at WKU, and so does Trey Bass, the outstanding running back.
That's right.
So, WKU kind of got a twofer out of that situation, out of Satterfield's decision there. And then lastly, of course, we have the Kentucky Wildcats, and people are kind of down on them in this preseason. They don't think they're going to do very well this year, or at least the national pundits. They don't have them. They're not looking very highly on them.
Their schedule's not that hard.
Their schedule is pretty much cream puff, for an SEC schedule. And then also, they've got the quarterback back, and he,
that's good or bad.
He was brilliant at times and terrible at times last year. Yeah. They were able to paper it over because they had an outstanding defense in Benny Snell. So we'll see how that part works.
Yeah, they lost some. They lost 2 first-round picks, and then Benny Snell was like a 4th-round pick to the NFL.
Right.
And some serious losses on defense.
Oh, yeah.
It's they won 10 games in a bowl last year. They had a great season.
Yeah, that's one of the best Kentucky seasons, actually.
That's correct. Now, will they win 10? I don't think they're going to win 10, but their schedule's not that difficult, and by all accounts, their recruiting has been tremendous.
Oh, yeah.
But that's, your recruiting for this year didn't really pay off till a couple years later.
Yeah.
So, I think they can win 7, and 7's a good year, especially for Kentucky and the SEC. I'm not sold on their quarterback. I thought last year they won despite him at times.
Oh, yeah.
But maybe he'll have another jump up because they're not going to be able to hand the ball off as much, I think, this year as they were last year.
Yeah. They were kind of an old school team in a lot of ways.
They really were. They had a great defense.
Yeah.
Great defense.
And a solid running game. They had a guy they could give the ball to 25 times.
Quarterback can make some plays more or less with his legs. I think he's.
He has a big arm. He can throw deep. His accuracy is was not great last year.
That's correct. So maybe we'll see. And with a year there, maybe he's improved.
Yeah. So I think I would say overall, if you look at last season's, Kentucky has to come down some because they can't play as well as they did last year, I don't think, and replace the talent.
I don't think so, no.
And I think Louisville's schedule is rough, which means they may not win but a couple of more games, but we're really looking for the effort out of the players.
I think so.
Satterfield's gotten that turned around. And at WKU, I think they could win 6 games just by not being snake bit. And so I think our expectations shouldn't be off the charts, even if things start well, like let's say at WKU or Louisville or Kentucky. But I think we might have a solid college football season.
I think so. Louisville, I think, will be lucky to be 500.
Yeah.
I think Western will be 500. I think they'll be exciting.
Oh, yeah.
I think we may see some 45-38 wins or losses, which is I'm fine with.
Right.
And I think Kentucky will come down. Probably, I'd say 7. I think I saw a line out Las Vegas at 6.5. I think there'll be more towards 7 than to 6.
Yeah.
And so just kind of look forward to the year. Be here in about a month.
Yep, that's right. I look forward to it as well. This is Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag on ESPN Radio 1230.
Well, John, it seems like just last week we were singing the praises and the potential of the Cincinnati Reds. Wait, it was just last week, I believe. How they were just, they still had a chance in the NL Central. They weren't that far off. Their defense pitching was good. Just had to learn how to score some runs. And in a week's time, they look like the Cincinnati Reds of the last 3 seasons, basically.
They really have. I mean, I've been saying on here that I thought they were better, and it maybe turned the corner because their pitching was so much better.
Yeah.
But man, since the All-Star, I think they're 3-10, 3-11, maybe in their last 14 games or something like that. I drove up there Thursday to watch them play St. Louis, and I mean it was an entertaining game, but it was they got beat, and then they proceeded to lose a game. I think it was Friday night in which they were ahead 7-0 going into the 6th, and they ended up getting beat. I think it was 12-11 or 13-12, something like that.
13-12.
13-12. That's exactly right. And it just, I don't know. It's just like, here we go again. they've just got, like I said, their pitching is a lot better. It's much improved, but it seems like to me they got too many infielders that play the same spot. Yeah. They're going to do something about that. Joey Votto's having to be fair, really a bad year. Mm-hmm. He's his average is okay. He's like 265, but he's only hit like 7 home runs, 25 RBIs, which is not in that ballpark. Playing first base, you expect closer to 15 to 20, and this time of year closer to 50 to 60 RBIs, or even more than that. So it's just I don't know. It's hard to pinpoint exactly what's wrong, but now it seems like they're back to where they were, which is it's hard to believe they've got other than the Marlins, the worst record now in the National League.
The interesting thing is Jason Harbison was working on his show notes Friday night during the course of that game. And so on the Red Legs radio report that they do on Saturdays, they have a Twitter account. It's called Red Legs Radio Rep. And so on his Twitter account, he's putting re-edit a show notes. Re-edit a show notes. Oh, my gosh, I'm going to have to re-edit the show notes.
After giving up that big lead.
Yeah, I mean, he's just like going through. I mean, and then I got a message from him, about putting the show online and that kind of thing. And basically, it's here we are with the Reds being the Reds.
Well, what made that Friday game so bad when he was up 7-0 is they just made so many. They were just so lackadaisical mentally, and they made like 3 mistakes in that one inning in which they gave up 10 runs basically. 2 errors and throwing to the wrong base, and just things that I'll just be honest with you, bad baseball teams do.
Well, I mean, and you're talking about things that you just don't expect major league players, the kind of mistakes for them to make. I mean, you would think that they would have thrown out of that.
Throwing the wrong base, and fairly routine grounder that would have gotten him out of the inning to Votto and hit kind of right at him, and he backhands it, which is an odd play to say the least, and goes off his leg, and it's just
if you're Reds fans,
I would have given anything to hear Marty Brenneman call that inning, because he's painfully honest, and there's no telling what he was saying.
Yeah, and by the way, the Reds are back in action tonight, and so you can hear that game here.
It was a great crowd though Thursday night. They had 34,000, and I enjoy going. If I could somehow get a helicopter to get me there, getting across the bridge in Cincinnati is, oh my gosh. It don't matter what time you get there. It's going to take you 45 minutes to an hour to drive 5 miles. Mm-hmm. And the parking is difficult at times, and of course it's about 95 degrees, didn't help. But once you're in the stadium, everything's fine. But boy, it's difficult with Cincinnati traffic.
Do they not have a park and walk bridge in between Northern Kentucky and Cincinnati these days, or anything like that?
Well, not in that weather. I wouldn't walk in that far.
That's a good point. That was one of my son and I went to Pittsburgh. That was one of the things there that I thought was pretty cool. Is you could park on one side of the river and then walk to the other side of the river to the stadium and whatnot. And they basically had it all blocked off, so that was it.
Yeah, it was 95, and heat index about 104.
Yeah, so you would have melted it while walking over there.
Yeah, and the person with me, too. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, real quick on this. Have you watched the 3-on-3 basketball league? Have you seen any of this?
I have watched probably no more than 2 minutes of the game. I just don't. They're just they're older NBA players with enormous ego who I think are taking themselves too seriously.
Well, some of it, yes, they are taking themselves too seriously. Here's one thing that this reminds me of. All right. So when I was growing up, the park where I'd go and play, there'd be these dudes, and they had to be in their we thought they were in their 70s, okay, because we're all teenagers.
Right.
But they would roll up in this blue van, and then they'd get out of this blue van, and the 40-ounce bottle would roll out of the blue van, and smoke would roll out of the blue van.
Yeah.
And then they'd come out on the court, and they'd get next, and they'd play. And you hated playing with them because they weren't as quick as we were.
But they were playing full court.
We were playing full court.
This is half court.
It is half court. But I mean, the reason it reminds me of this is because if you went by them off the dribble, they just grab a hold of you.
Yeah.
And then you call the foul because you call your own foul, that kind of thing, and then you get mad, And the games never actually ended because somehow you'd wind up the score tied 13-13, going to 15 or whatever, and you could never get through the games. Well, the reason I kind of enjoy the 3-on-3 league is because it's reminiscent of that, which I find hilarious. But in terms of basketball, it's not. I mean, it's not really good basketball.
I can't believe it's on TV. And as many people are at the games as well.
I mean, they like these guys, though. I mean, some of them are pretty interesting folks. I mean, you got Joe Johnson out there. He's entertaining.
Yeah, he just got out of the league too, so he's
torching them.
He's probably the best player over there. But yeah, there's a lot of. It's I don't really enjoy it. To be honest with you, it's not for me. But evidently, there's some people like it. They go to 50.
Yeah.
First to get to 50 wins.
Yeah.
And they have a 4-point shot too.
Yeah.
So
three spots on the floor, and then you can step up and shoot from there and get a 4.
Right, and I think if you get fouled, you get 1 free throw.
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah, we've got some different rules, but yeah, it's different.
If you are a fan of the Shaq Beckham down, you might like watching it a little bit because those big old dudes, they just pound into you.
Yeah, they're not playing Golden State basketball.
If you for all those people who are fans of the 90s and and it was rough and tough basketball and you like that stuff, it's the league for you.
That's right.
Because they will beat each other up and then there will be no fouls called. Some of them cry just as much as Golden State Warriors, but
that is true.
Meanwhile, the NFL, the first preseason game is August 1st, so that's a couple of weeks away.
Training camp started for some teams last week, and I think everybody will start by the end of this week.
Yeah. So we're getting geared up for the football season. It's only it's not far away, as we've already discussed.
Which means fantasy football will start as well.
Yeah, do you have any tips for your fantasy football?
Not yet. I bought a book today.
Did you buy a book?
Buy a book. That's right. Got to get all my information.
It'll be outdated by the time you actually read it.
No, I just a little summer reading. I'm tired of my David Baldacci book, so now I'm going to fantasy football.
Gotcha. Who's going to win the Super Bowl this year?
New England.
New England?
Why not? Is that outrageous to say New England?
You might as well pick them every year.
50-year-old quarterback? Yeah, probably New England. Why not?
Yeah.
If I had to, if my life was on the line, that's who I'd definitely say.
Yeah.
I think Philadelphia would be good.
Uh-huh.
I like their team. I think Pittsburgh will be a lot better than people think.
Yeah, I actually agree with that. I think some of their
Addition
problems
by subtraction.
Yeah, that's right. They got rid of the 2 people who caused the most.
Generally in the NFL, the teams with the less noise do well.
Uh-huh.
Then Philadelphia, you hadn't heard a lot about them.
Yeah.
Got a healthy quarterback back, and they've done some things defensively. Pittsburgh's noise is down.
Yeah.
New England, you never hear anything.
Yeah.
It's teams that have the most noise. Dallas, They're arguing over contracts. Cleveland, there's no way Cleveland's winning it. Too many combustible parts over in Cleveland.
Yeah, they have gone the opposite of addition by subtraction. They've gone to subtraction by addition.
They have. There's no way. Yeah, way too high expectations. I wouldn't. They'll be better than they were last year, but that's just too much going on for them.
I tell you, a team that I probably like is the Jacksonville Jaguars again.
At least they got a quarterback that looks like will be steady for them.
Yes, and
good call. I agree.
Because they were down last year, but I mean, look, they got to the AFC Championship game the year before that, and
with Blake Bortles,
and I think they got the core of what they needed back. I think they'll be back in the contention. I like the Kansas City Chiefs again because
got a great quarterback.
They do have a great quarterback.
Maybe the best young quarterback in the league.
Yeah, and then probably over in the NFC, I will probably go with maybe the Minnesota Vikings.
Okay.
They might be. I think they might be a little bit surprising. And I don't think you can count out the Rams either. I mean, their offense will be dynamic. We'll see whether what the Patriots dialed up on them in the Super Bowl people can also utilize other than the Patriots.
Yeah, and Todd Gurley's a little bit of a question mark.
He is a bit of a question mark. But, hey, their backup running back last year was good.
Yes.
And one of the knocks was that they just didn't run the ball enough in the Super Bowl, in terms of effectively.
They didn't score a touchdown.
No. I mean, they
they got beat 13-3.
Right. So I think that'd be good. I tell you, I'll always like the Saints. We'll see. Their defense was better last year. We'll see if that continues to be the improvement. As long as you got Drew Brees, that's sort of like the Tom Brady thing.
He's turned 40.
Yeah.
Had another great year. Didn't think he was as dynamic late in the year as he was early.
He did seem to wear down.
Yeah, but it's hard to argue with his steady play.
Yeah. What do you think the odds are in Vegas? You think they're picking the Patriots?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure they're their favorite. I think they have the highest. Last I looked, the highest win total. They've got them at 11.
Is that right?
Yeah, and that's pretty much what they are every year. They're in that. They're never really below 10, and they've been up to 16 one year, right? They were 16-0,
right?
So they're up there. Of course, Kansas City's up there. The Rams were up there. We didn't mention Chicago. They were really good last year.
Yeah, defense is outstanding.
And this is their third year for the quarterback.
Yep. Well, this is Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be back next week with football coaches.
Thanks for listening, and be sure and join James and John once again next Monday at 4 for the Brown Sports Bag, a local weekly sports machine presented by McDonald's of Glasgow.
This is WCDS Glasgow, ESPN Radio 1230, your total sports leader.